Hi everyone, welcome back to my class. Students, in this session, you will understand the next lesson from the class 9th biology, that is tissue. Before getting to know more about the tissues, let us once recall whatever you have studied under the lesson fundamental unit of life. See, when I say fundamental unit of life, you have given more importance for the cell to study under the lesson the fundamental unit of life. When I say cell, how can you define the cell? Cell is the basic structural, it is the basic structural and the functional unit of life. Correct? Cell is the basic structural and the functional unit of life. So this is how we can define the cell. And based on the number of cells present in the living organisms, the living organisms are categorized into two different groups. The first one is the unicellular organisms, and the second one is the multicellular organisms. Based on the number of cells present in the living organisms, the living organisms are classified into unicellular organisms and the multicellular organisms. How can we define the unicellular organisms? See, these unicellular organisms are the organisms which has only one single cell. It has only the one single cell. With the help of one single cell, all the activities of the organisms are performed. The activities may be the digestion, excretion, respiration, whatever the activities may be. Each and every activity that has to be performed in a unicellular organism is being performed with the help of only single cell. The examples for the unicellular organisms are the amoeba, euglena, paramecium, and so on. You have understood very clearly about these topics in the fundamental unit of life. So then how can you define the multicellular organisms? The multicellular organisms are the organism which has a many cells. Here the organisms has the many cells. Whereas not all the cells involved in the same function. Instead, the cells are grouped. The cells are grouped to perform the various set of functions. When I say set of functions, the functions are again the digestion, the excretion, the respiration, the circulation, and so on. There are various set of activities which will be taken place in the body of the living organisms. All those activities are performed by the group of cells. Here the cells are grouped. There are so many cells which are present in the multicellular organism, and these cells are grouped. The cells are grouped to perform the set of functions. The set of functions are again, as I told you, the digestion, excretion, and so on. Here a group of cells, they join together to perform the specific function. See, when I say specific function, that means, see, for example, here is a group of cells. See, these group of cells, they perform only the activity of digestion. They will not involve in the activity of respiration. When I talk about the cells which are involved in the respiration, they only perform the activity of respiration. They will not involve in the activity of digestion. So the group of cells, they perform the specific function. Specific in the sense, one type of function. So these group of cells, we call these group of cells as tissues. We call the group of cells as tissues. Clear? Cell is the structural and functional unit of life. When these cells are grouped to perform the specific function in the body of living organism, we call the group of cells as tissues. Clear? So we are going to mainly focus on the tissues in this lesson. So then how can we define the tissues now? See, tissues are defined as a group of cells. Tissues are the group of cells that are similar in structure. They are similar in structure and they work together. They work together to achieve a particular function. To achieve a particular function, we can call this as the tissues. As I told you, tissues are the group of cells. They are the group of cells. They have similar structure. That means they are not completely identical. They are not completely same. Their structure is not completely same, but they look similar. They look similar and they work together. See, as I told you, these group of cells, they work together to perform the activity of digestion, and these group of cells, they work together to perform the activity of respiration, right? So the group of cells, they have similar structure and they work together to achieve the particular functions maybe, as I told you, again, the digestion, respiration, and so on, right? So this set of function is performed by the tissues. So we can define the tissue as a group of cells that are similar in structure and work together to achieve a particular function. So when we think about the tissues, understand the living organisms are made up of cells, right? You all know that the living organisms all the living organisms on the earth, they are completely made up of cells. So they consist of tissues. Now, when we are talking about multicellular organisms, why? Because see, unicellular organisms has only one single cell, and with the help of single cell, all the activities of that particular organism is performed. So we are going to mainly focus on the multicellular organism because the group of cells are seen only in the multicellular organisms but not in the unicellular organism. Okay, so here you can observe the two types of tissues. You can observe the plant tissue, whereas at this side, and animal tissues another side. So plant tissues or animal tissues, they're completely different in their appearance. That means when we look the tissues of the plant and the tissues of the animal under the microscope, so this is how they look. So, and the structure of both the tissues are different. Clear? So with this, now let us understand about the different levels of organization. When I say levels of organization, if an organism has to born, if it has to get birth, it needs some levels of organization. So those levels of organization we are going to focus now. So when I say levels of organization, you all know that the first level of any organism is the cell. Because cell is the basic structural and the functional unit of life. So the first organization, when I talk about the levels of organization, the first organization is the cell, because it is the building block, basic building block of the life. And now the cells, they group together. The group of cells, now it is called as tissues. What do tissues do in the living organisms? The tissues contain the set of cells, the group of cells that will help to perform the various set of functions. I told you, each set of tissues, that is the cells, they perform the specific function. Correct? So the cells, they group together to perform the various activities. We call that group of cells as tissues. Now, these tissues, they group together to form the organ. There are various organs in our body, right? There is the stomach, lungs, liver, intestine, and there is brain. So there are so many organs in our body. So the tissues, they group together. The tissues, they group together to form an organ. And the organs, they group together to form the organ system. The organ, they group together to form the organ system. What do you mean by organ system? The system which consists of different organs. Which are the different organs? The stomach, the liver, the brain, the intestine, the heart, the kidney, right? These are the different organs. So these organs, they group together. They group together to form the organ system, and this whole organ system, now it will form an organism. It forms the organisms. So these are the different levels of organization. The first level is the cell, because the cell is the basic structural and the functional unit of life. Correct? And these cells, they group together to form the tissues. And the tissues, they group together to form the organ. Organs, there are so many organs in our body, right? So those organs, they group together to form the organ system. And the organ system completely comprises to form an organism. So these are the different levels of organization. I hope you got a clear idea about the different levels of organization in any system, that means in any living organism, that means any multicellular living organisms. So in this lesson we are going to mainly focus on the second level, that is tissues. So in the next session, let us understand about the difference between the plant tissues and the animal tissues. That's all for this session. I'm signing off. Thank you.